The following segment is sponsored by Daniel A. White and Associates.
It does not necessarily reflect the views of WDEL or Forever Media.
The Rick Jensen Show on 101.7 FM, 1150 AM, WDEL, and streaming to your smart speaker and mobile device.
Well, anything and everything that these retirement professionals say should be the opinion of WDEL management and all the advertisers because they're smart guys. Dan White and Associates, they are retirement specialists when it comes to retirement planning. On the phone right now is Dan Simon. He's in the Middletown office. You can always reach him, by the way, at 888-690-8820 and ask him a question. They really are that affable. Dan, how you doing, bud?
I am well, Rick. How are you today?
Oh, peachy.
I know what you did there.
Yeah, I know. So what you don't know, folks, is that off the air, I took the call, and I said, Dan, how you doing? He said, peachy. I said, okay. I use that phrase, that word, sarcastically often, and often say it that way. But actually, today's it's a pretty good day, pretty fun day, and a lot of conversation back and forth with folks. Some we agree, some don't, but getting some good information out there. And that's why you're on. Every Wednesday after the news at 1:30, one of the great planners over there, Dan White and Associates, is on for some good information for you. What are we talking about today?
So, Rick, I thought it would be beneficial to share a news story that was a top story in the New York Times today. And it had to do with our industry and retirement rollovers and fraud and stolen checks and all the things that should never, ever happen if things are done the right way. So a little bit of backstory here. An individual who was 33 years old and changing jobs, which a lot of 33-year-olds do. I understand how the employment landscape is these days, and people bounce around from one company to another to advance their careers, make more money, right? Same old song and dance. And they leave behind the 401k, and sometimes people decide, hey, I'm going to pull the money out of that 401k, and we're going to put it in the new plan, but it's a whole lot easier. They're just going to send the check to me, and then I'll redeposit it.
Oh, no.
Awful,
But
awful idea.
Now you're saying, and what about the fraud part?
All right, so here's where things get even worse. This individual had them send the check to himself. He was going to do what's called an indirect rollover, which you're allowed to do. You get 60 days to get it back into a qualified retirement account. But the check was stolen by a thief. It was cashed. And not only is he going to owe taxes on the money, there's a 10% penalty on the distribution of $114,000. He's 33 years old, so the early 10% withdrawal penalty applies. And to make matters even worse, there's no theft loss deduction available to him.
Wait.
He's losing every way around.
Dan, can't he prove, oh, my gosh, this is stolen, I didn't do this, and get all that forgiven? I mean, my God, he's already lost all that money, and somehow, I don't even know if he can claw that back, but certainly there's a way to get that forgiven?
Not by the government, no. In this case, no theft loss deduction is available to him. So the moral of the story here, Rick, is I don't know what the individual's recourse will be, but the moral of the story is do direct rollovers, make it go from custodian to custodian as opposed to doing indirect rollovers where the money can touch your hands and also potentially be stolen. It works every time when it goes from custodian to custodian, and when those checks are sent through the mail to the individual doing an indirect rollover, all sorts of bad things can happen. I wanted to share that story with you because you hear it, you don't think it's real, and then all of a sudden you see it pop up on the front page of the New York Times business section, and it's like people are still doing this stuff.
Oh yeah, it is real. I mean, it happened to me.
Real.
So something similar
really?
Similar. And this is why it's so dangerous to send checks in the mail anymore. And I learned from the post office how to do it safely. So here's what happened. My wife and I are visiting friends. We're in Pennsylvania. About 9:20 in the morning or so, I get a phone call. I see it's an 888 number. I thought, I'm just going to trash it. But for some reason, I thought, I'll answer this. Turns out it was my bank. And even though I didn't believe it was my bank at first, they proved to me it was the bank. They had They had my entire checking account number and told me what it was. And they asked, did you write a check for $10,500 to, I don't know, Yahudi Wak Wak or something, some crazy name. I don't know. And I said, no. And they said, okay, well, this is the fraud department in Atlanta. We have a check here that's clearing through for $10,500 or something, and we wanted to check and make sure it was valid. Now, I'm glad they're doing this. It was odd, but I'm glad they did that. So they froze my checking account, and then I had to call. I didn't trust them on the phone still. I still didn't know who they were. They gave me a, what do they call it, an incident number. They gave me the incident number. So I went on I looked at my card, my debit card, and I called my bank, and they said, we'll get you right over there to the fraud department. And I talked to this guy. The guy goes, yep, it's legit, and here's your incident number. And he repeated to me the incident number. I said, okay, that's legit. They said, you're not going to lose any money. We're denying the check, but you have to change your account. So you have to go to a branch and get a new account number. Well, the good news is that I was taking a day off. So that happened at 9:30 in the morning, 9:20.
Yeah.
By noon, I had a brand new checking account and everything was fine because I had to go to a branch and do that. And thank goodness that account is a bank that has branches all over the country. That's why I use that account, because if I travel, at least I know there's a local branch there. Well, I get back and I'm just amazed that this happened. I want to know, how the hell did this happen? Because they sent me a picture of my check. It was my check. But it was, and it was a number of a check that had gone out, but to somebody else for a much smaller amount of money. So the next day, I happened to be on LinkedIn, and there's a guy here in Delaware who had the same thing happen to him. And he was using, I think, the same post office that I often use, which is Tallyville. So I went to the Tallyville post office, and I said, I have a question. And the question is, are people stealing checks? And they said, yes, they are. But they have it fixed.
Yep.
They have a camera now. And here's the public service announcement. I no longer put any check into a blue box, even if it's a blue box at a post office, because that's what's happening. They're stealing checks out of the blue box. If you want to... Go ahead.
The exact same thing happened. It was interesting. I was on the phone with a client of mine yesterday, Rick, and I had some painting done at my house, and I was very happy with the company, the gentleman that did the work for me, so I recommended him to my client, and they went to their house, did a nice job. They recommended him to do another job for a neighbor, and my client sent a check to make payment, and the same thing happened. The check was stolen. It was cashed. And gentleman who owns a painting company called him a few weeks later and said, hey, just call him to touch base, see if you're going to pay us. He's like, what do you mean? I did. You cashed the check. I'm like, no, we never got it.
Oh.
And sure enough, it was stolen. The same thing. Had to go to the bank, change all the account numbers and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, you got to be careful these days. As I said to Dan White earlier, we were talking about, what we were talking about today, and I said, yeah, you got to be careful. The thieves work hard to get their money.
To get your money. Yeah,
exactly.
They do. So the public service announcement is this. If you're going to mail a check, take it directly to inside the post office, not even the blue box. Because what they'll do is they take a long device and they stick it down to the mail slot of the blue box, and it's got sticky on the end of it, gum or whatever, and they start pulling out letters, and they find checks, and they what they call whitewash them. They'll take the payee's name off it, maybe the date, maybe not. Certainly the amount of money. They leave the signature on. They'll whitewash the memo if there's any question about that. Then they put in the amount of money that they want to steal from you. They set up a fake bank account, and they transfer that to the fake bank account, and then they take the money out of that fake bank account. So if you're going to mail a check, which is a bad idea, you put it into the mail slot there inside the post office, or give it to a mail carrier. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember the movie. There was a good movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, a few years back, and I think it was Catch Me If You Can.
True story.
All about whitewash and check. Yeah, true story. Yep. So I guess the trend is back, so the public service announcements, be careful and watch what you put in the mail.
I know. And when it comes to transferring rollover money, 401k to your own IRA, I have never touched any of those checks. I would work with either, let's say, TIAA Craft or Chase or any of these other companies. And I would say, okay, well, look, here's the Fidelity account. I want to roll that into my IRA over here. You guys do it. And I would get letters or emails, both actually, confirming the transfer of the money. I put that in my records. I never had a check travel to me. I don't even know how they transferred it. I'm hoping it's electronic because that seems to be a lot safer, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, most companies out there will do either ACH or electronic transfer, wire transfer, but there's still some. I mean, I see it all the time. I mean, you've got big companies like Merrill Lynch, Fidelities of the world. And I mean, these are companies that administer 401ks for large employers in the area that we're in. And the checks are still sent. I mean, granted, they're made out to another custodian, but they still want to send them to the client.
No.
Whether they'll do standard mail or UPS, you pay a little extra fee for it. But, a lot of times, sometimes that little extra fee, whether it's $25 for secured mail, can certainly be worth the aggravation and the headache of what we know people have gone through.
Well, now that's another piece of research I need to do. If I ever decide I'm going to move my IRAs over or do a rollover to a different company, I need to research now whether or not they do ACH or direct transfers from one administrator to another, or if they mail a check. And if they mail a check, I don't want anything to do with them at all. Forget it. If that's your policy, I'm not going to put my money with you guys. That seems crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be very secure with it, that's for sure.
I'm glad you guys study this and you know all about this, and I really appreciate that. It's Dan Simon with Dan White & Associates, financial planners specializing in retirement income. I'm a happy camper client, and you will be too. How's that? You like that? You will be too. You can give Dan a call at 888-690-8820. Doesn't charge you anything to sit down with the guy. Or just Google Dan White & Associates, because they got on the internet a long time ago. And because they were early adapters, their website is actually danwhiteandassociates.com.
Gotta type it all out.
I know, right?
You can Google it, though.
That's faster. It is. Or just 888-690-8820. Every Sunday morning at 7 o'clock here on 101.7 FM, 1150 AM, and streaming to your smartphone or whatever device you use. Dan brings On the Money first thing in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning on WDEL. What's on tap for this Sunday show?
So On the Money, we'll be talking about your money, and he's going to be discussing...
My money? What's he doing talking about my money?
Your money. I was talking to your listeners, Rick. Your listeners.
Yeah.
5 things you need to know if you're within 5 years of retirement. So I kind of call that the retirement, danger zone a little bit. So things we want to check off, dot the I's, cross the T's as we're preparing for retirement.
Thanks, Dan Simon.
I'm sure it'll be a great show.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for the tip, man.
My pleasure.
All right, bye-bye.